Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to address the 64th Annual General Debate of the UN. Each year, we gather here to confront our common challenges and to express our vision for the world we share, the world for which we are common stewards. And each year, we promise to do more, to do better, to live up and to defend the principles enshrined in the UN Charter. We meet this year on the 20th anniversary of the most successful triumphs of those principles. 20 years have passed since Europe and the rest of the world was liberated from one of the cruelest episodes in modern history. The fall of the Berlin Wall brought to an end an artificial line that separated nations, divided families, strangled freedom, and imprisoned millions. Remarkably, that formidable wall crumbled without a single shot being fired. It yielded to the will of those millions who yearned for liberty, and it yielded to the determination of a united West. 20 years ago, a universally feared military force was defeated by a force of a universal truth, the call for freedom and the simple desire to live a dignified life. When the Berlin Wall was dismantled 20 years ago, it did more than free the captive nations of the Warsaw Pact. It unleashed the hopes, the dreams, and aspirations and talents of millions of citizens living under the tyranny of the Soviet Union, including my own nation's people. Today, these citizens make up more than a dozen diverse nations, linked together by common desires and ambitions to live in a world free from spheres of influence, free from external control, able to choose their own destiny. Today, as we look back at this historic chapter and the impact it had on our world, we can rightly be proud of what was achieved, of the tremendous progress made, and the prosperity that a lasting peace has brought. But if we are to evaluate the past honestly, we must admit our present remains bittersweet. For there is a real danger that rather than building on this great chapter of idealism and progress, states and leaders will allow a return of the dull complacency and cynical power politics that led so many of the worst moments of the past 100 years. And the moment is bittersweet because, regrettably, not everyone drew same lessons of hope and inspiration when the wall came down. Indeed, 20 years ago, when freedom spirit swept that wall away, few imagined the repression and threats it represented would so soon reappear, and that the hopes unleashed in 1989 would so quickly founder. Yet today in Europe, that is whole, free, and at peace remains a goal still to be achieved, a project not yet accomplished, and a challenge unfortunately unmet. Today I stand before you as the democratically elected leader of a proud and sovereign nation, but tragically Georgia today, like Germany a generation ago, is a nation with a deep wound running through her. As Václav Havel and other leading voices of Europe's conscience declared earlier this week, Europe is today divided by a new wall built by an outside force, a wall that runs through the middle of Georgia, built by the same people that missed the wall in Berlin, that regretted the fall of the Berlin Wall, that did everything for the wall not to fall, a wall that cuts off 1/5 of our territory, a wall that once again divides Europe from itself, creating new lines of repression and fear, artificial dividing lines inside the internationally recognized borders of a European nation. Well, it may be unpopular, but I am obliged to speak the truth. And the truth is that the wall's existence mocks the progress we seem to have made since that bright, shining day in Berlin 20 years ago. This new wall tells us that once again the rule of force has trumped the rule of law and the rule of reason. I see no irony, only tragedy, in the fact that the wall is being built by the very people whose ideas were collectively and decisively defeated and rejected just 20 years ago. I have no comfort that those who thought that the wall's destruction was the single greatest tragedy of the 20th century now lead these deplorable efforts. 1 year ago, my country was invaded thanks the warplanes, warships, bombs, and state-directed cyber attacks. Hackers descended upon our towns, villages, cities, infrastructure, and the economy. Hundreds of our people were killed within days. Thousands were wounded. Tens of thousands of innocent civilians were forced to flee in the face of ethnic cleansing that independent human rights organizations have very well documented. Today, these acts of brutality have gone unaddressed in direct contravention of international law. The norms of this institution and internationally signed document designed to reverse these wrongs, these are the facts that confront us when we gather here today. And these facts do have a name: armed aggression, ethnic cleansing, mass violation of human rights, and continuing illegal occupation. Ladies and gentlemen, those who unleashed war in our region, in my country, and led ethnic cleansing campaign in Georgia, said yesterday in this very hall from this very rostrum that they had to do it to, I quote, implement the principle of indivisibility of security in order to step over the legacy of the past era. La langue de bois, very classical la langue de bois from old times. The only thing that they stepped over in reality was our sovereign border. They said they had to do it as their predecessors had to invade Poland because of reckless desire of Poland to be free in 1939, Finland in 1940, Hungary in 1956, Czechoslovakia in 1968, and Afghanistan in 1979. And they had to erase the same people, a capital of 400,000 people, inhabitants, Grozny, to destroy and exterminate the proud Chechen nation and kill tens of thousands of innocent women and children. And I'm saying it on the record that the clock is ticking and they will have to do it again, and they will do it again unless they are stopped by all of us. Recent history indeed is a powerful guide to understanding what kind of actions these leaders undertake in order to bring what they call security and stability to my nation. But I want to say clearly today that the people of Georgia cannot and will not accept a new dividing line in our country. That is an unchangeable commitment under the daily menaces, military provocations, all kinds of lies directed against us by all different sources. My nation will not crumble, and we will never surrender to this brutal force. The wall across Europe is not just a matter for Georgia. Indeed, the very values of this institution remain at a threat. The values that the protection of human rights, the respect of the dignity and equality of all persons, the inadmissibility of ethnic cleansing, and recognition of the inviolability of sovereign borders. All are values that form the bedrock of the institution. We certainly did not choose this course of action, but it's up to us to recognize and reverse its illegality. As a community of responsible nations, it is our collective responsibility to uphold international law and insist that borders cannot and will not be changed through the use of force. It is up to us to tear down this new wall peacefully with the power of our ideas and the strength of our convictions. I want the world to understand clearly how we view this new wall and our strategy for tearing it down. To start, let me state outright, we do not expect it to